Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I welcome the arrival of the immigration Lindsey Graham of 2013. The other Lindsey Graham, we shall see, as you yourself have acknowledged. Mr. Barr, I ask these questions, these two questions of every nominee who comes before any of the committees on which I sit, and these are the questions. Since you became a legal adult, have you ever made unwanted requests for sexual favors or committed any verbal or physical harassment or assault of a sexual nature?
No.
Have you ever faced discipline or entered into a settlement related to this kind of conduct?
No.
I have a question relating to recusal. You've been asked a number of times. It is very clear that the president does not want an attorney general who will recuse himself from the Mueller investigation. So when he came before us for confirmation in January 2017, Jeff Sessions wrote on his committee questionnaire that he would, quote, seek and follow the advice of the Department of Justice's designated agency ethics official if confronted with a conflict of interest, end quote. And in fact, he did do that, and he was basically pummeled by the president ever since. So Matthew Whitaker has not come before us for the job of Attorney General, but we know that when it came time to make a decision about recusal, he didn't want to be the object of Trump's wrath, so he proceeded to listen to and then ignore the advice of the career ethics officials at the DOJ who recommended recusal. So your answer to Senator Klobuchar's makes it clear that you are going to basically follow the Whitaker model. Can you understand why that is not terribly reassuring to us? These are not normal times. This is not 27 years ago. Today, the president is Donald Trump, who will do anything to protect himself. He wants you, who has written a manifesto about why the president shouldn't be prosecuted, at least for obstruction of justice, who has met with and consulted with the president's defense attorneys, who has written op-eds defending his firings of Sally Yates and James Comey to be his attorney general. So in this context, just asking us to trust you is not enough. Why won't you simply follow Jeff Sessions' lead and take and follow, the critical portion being follow, the advice of the department's ethics officials?
Because the regulations and the responsibilities of the Attorney General as the head of the agency vest that responsibility in the Attorney General. And I am not going to surrender the responsibilities of the Attorney General to get the title. I don't need the title. If you don't trust me to if you
have, excuse me,
yeah.
You have repeated that answer many, many times. However, I think we all acknowledge that Jeff Sessions possibly didn't want to recuse himself, but he did. And so you have it within your power to follow the ethics advice of your own department, and you're telling us you're not going to. So that is the bottom line.
No, Senator, I think Jeff Sessions recused himself because of a different provision, which was the political conflict provision.
I think
he played a role in
the
campaign.
In the context of all of the things that you have done, basically to get the attention of President Trump to nominate you, I would say that there's a political context to what your decision should be also. Let me move on. You have said that you will allow Mueller to complete his work, although I do want to ask you very specifically, because you did write that 19-page memo relating to the obstruction of justice issue. Would you allow the Mueller investigation with regard to obstruction of justice to also go forward unimpeded by you?
I don't know whether there's an investigation of obstruction of
Well, definitely obstruction of justice. You read the papers as well as we do, that is an element of the Mueller investigation. I don't think you can sit here and tell us that you do not think that that is a part of the investigation. But let's say that it is. Having written what you did, would you seek to stop that portion of the Mueller investigation? That being the obstruction of justice portion, assuming that that is in fact part of the investigation.
Okay, but you have to remember, my memo was on a very specific statute and a specific theory that I was concerned about. I have no basis for suspecting at this point that that is in play at all.
You mean that particular provision?
That
So
that
Mueller's-
provision or theory, or theory.
Well, I did say, let's assume that, in fact, obstruction of justice is part of the Mueller
No,
investigation.
when I say theory, I mean, what I was addressing was, whether the removal of Comey in and of itself would be obstruction.
Of course, it's not in
Under
in
a
and of itself.
under a particular
I
statute.
hate to be interrupted, but, I only have 4 minutes, so thank you very much. You were asked about the investigations that are going on in the Southern District of New York, the Eastern District of Virginia, the District of Columbia, and there are various investigations brought by various U.S. attorneys' offices relating to the activities of Donald Trump, his campaign, his inauguration, his foundation, his businesses, his families, his associates. Do you consider these to be lawful investigations? Because I believe that you responded to Senator Blumenthal that if these are lawful investigations by the U.S. attorney's offices, that you do not see yourself interfering with them.
I have no reason to think they're not lawful investigations, whatever they are. Seem to know more than I do about what's under investigation.
That's reassuring that you're wanting to have the Mueller investigation go forward extends to all of these other U.S. attorneys' investigations. I believe you also said that the Mueller report will be confidential. It is confidential under the special counsel's, whatever the criteria are. So what I'm hearing you saying that in spite of the fact that you want to be transparent, neither Congress nor public will get the Mueller report because that's confidential. So what we will be getting is your report of the Mueller report, subject to applicable laws limiting disclosure. So is that what you're telling us?
I don't know what at the end of the day, what will be releasable. I don't know what Bob Mueller is writing.
Well, you said that the Mueller report is confidential pursuant to whatever the regulations are that applies to him. So I'm just trying to get as to what you're going to be transparent about.
As the rules stand now, people should be aware that the rules, I think, say that the the special counsel will prepare a summary report on any prosecutive or declination decisions, and that shall be confidential and shall be treated as any other declination or prosecutive material within the department. In addition, the Attorney General is responsible for notifying and reporting certain information upon the conclusion of the investigation. Now, how these are going to fit together and what can be gotten out there, I have to wait, and I would have to wait. I'd want to talk to Rod Rosenstein and see what he has discussed with Mueller and what.
But you have testified that you'd like to make as much of the
Right,
original
and so
report
all I can say right now
open as
is,
possible.
yeah, all I can say right now is my goal and intent is to get as much information out as I can,
Thank you.
consistent with the regulations.
So in the minute that I have, I'd just like to go over some of the policies that Jeff Sessions has followed. One is zero tolerance policy, which led to the separation of children from their parents. He refused to defend the Affordable Care Act and argued in the Texas lawsuit that key parts of the ACA was unconstitutional. He failed to bring a single lawsuit to enforce the Voting Rights Act to stop voter suppression efforts, and he issued a memo making it harder for the Civil Rights Division to enter into consent decrees to address systemic police misconduct. Do you agree with these policies? Do you intend to continue them?
Well, the last one, yes, I agree with that policy. The other ones, I'm not. I'd have to see what the basis was for those decisions.
So do you think that as to the last one, which has to do with consent decrees, that there is a role for the Department of Justice in addressing systemic police misconduct?
No,
You don't see much of a role in that, or you see
that's
a
your
more limited role?
That's your characterization of it. That's not what I understand the policy to be. Of course, the department has a role on pattern and practice violations.
So the Attorney General Sessions has issued a rule that makes it a lot tougher to enter into these kinds of decrees.
Why do you say it's a lot tougher?
because it's not just relying on the career attorneys, that now it goes to the deputy AG or whoever, that there are more political appointees who are going to get involved in that process, and that makes it much more limited, I would say, in utilization. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.